Good morning, Chief Allen Banks. Today we're just basically going to give you a quick update on the officer-involved shooting that happened November 15, 2003 involving Officer Pete Romero from our DWI unit. So on November 15, 2013 at approximately 2:30 hours, or 2:30 in the morning, Officer Pete Romero was driving eastbound on Montgomery, driving his marked police unit. He is assigned to our DWI unit. And as he was driving eastbound, passing Carlisle, he observed a gray Buick vehicle driving eastbound in front of him at about 5 miles per hour. He pulled in behind the vehicle and noticed the vehicle was actually in the left lane, swerving a little into the middle lane, back to the left lane. Officer Romero engages and put on his emergency lights to pull over the vehicle. The vehicle pulled to the left right before Washington Street on Montgomery. Officer Romero was, the reason for pulling over the vehicle was to see if the driver was intoxicated, just based on his driving habits or behaviors. Officer Romero was calling out his location over his police radio when the driver of that vehicle that he pulled over exited the vehicle. Officer Romero noticed that the driver had a gun in his right hand. He immediately called out over his police radio that he was out with the subject with a gun. At that time, other units were dispatched immediately to that area. The driver of that vehicle was identified later as Bobby Garcia. Garcia ignored commands from Officer Romero to put down the gun, and he began to advance on Officer Romero. Officer Romero continually gave him commands to drop the gun. We know that he told him at least 9 times to drop his gun as he moved around his police vehicle. Garcia then threatened Romero with his firearm, which left Officer Romero no alternative but to protect himself. Officer Romero did fire 1 shot. That did stop Garcia. Garcia at that point was taken into custody and later transported to the hospital in critical condition. Officer Romero was wearing his lapel camera, and I did pull off a couple of still videos or still images from that lapel. Subject in that picture right there is Garcia, and you can see in his right hand he does have He does have a firearm in his right hand pointing up toward Officer Romero. And again, after Officer Romero shot him, Garcia was taken to the hospital in critical condition. The gun, that is the gun that Garcia did have, that Officer Romero identified, was at the scene. Through the investigation, it was determined the gun is a BB or pellet style gun. It was not a real firearm. Throughout this entire investigation, the family of Garcia has been very cooperative with us, trying to help us identify why Garcia exited his vehicle and pointed his gun at Officer Romero. They did tell us that Bobby Garcia has been suicidal lately, and our investigation has determined or has revealed that Garcia is under investigation by the New Mexico State Police for felony charges. I will ask you that any information in regards to that investigation be referred to State Police. I do not have information on that, so I do ask you to follow up with State Police on that investigation. Garcia was interviewed yesterday. It's the first time he's been able to be interviewed by our detectives. He did admit to purchasing the pellet gun because it looked like a real gun and he wanted to use it to have someone shoot him. He was asked about, this note was found in his wallet immediately after the shooting. The note does say, "Thank you, officer." Our detectives did ask him about the note, and he said after he was shot and killed by a police officer, he wanted to thank the officer for shooting and killing him. Therefore, he left that note in his wallet. Garcia did, after the interview, did offer his apology to Officer Pete Romero. stated he regrets putting him in that position. Garcia will be charged with aggravated assault on a police officer, and he will be booked after he is released from the hospital. I do not know when he will be released from the hospital. We do have a hold on him, and immediately upon his release, will be transported to the Metropolitan Detention Center to face the charges of aggravated assault. This time I have no further. I'll open up to any questions that you have for me.
Just to clarify, the state police investigation that was going on before this incident?
Yes.
Did you say the note was in his pocket?
It was in his
In
wallet.
his wallet?
What's Garcia's date of birth?
His date of birth is April 27th of 1949.
Where did the officer wear on his body was Garcia shot?
I'm sorry?
Where on his body was the...
Torso.
He's expected to be okay then?
Right now, he is still in the hospital. Condition has improved, and we are gonna arrest him or book him on this charges, so we expect him to be released at some point. When, I don't know.
Will we go through a mental evaluation potentially?
What we did is we referred his information over to our crisis intervention team, our CIT team, for follow-up, and we will continue to follow up with him based on his behaviors as a result of this incident.
How common are incidents like this, the suicide by cop visits?
That question's a tough question. I mean, they're unpredictable. We can't determine what people's state of mind is and, you know, what causes them to want an officer to shoot them, or a classic suicide by cop. This case is a prime example. I mean, Officer Romero's just doing his job as a DWI officer that night. No indications whatsoever that Garcia's choosing to end his life or have someone else take his life. And unfortunately, it puts Officer Romero in this position. You know, it's nothing that we look forward to. It's nothing that we want to do, but these people have he made his choice that night, what he wanted to do, and put our officer in that position.
How is Officer Romero?
Physically, he's okay. Mentally, I mean, it's something that the officers don't want to do. They don't have to use deadly force. They're out there to protect this community. They're out there to make sure that our quality of life in this community is above par. And for someone to make a decision and put him in that decision to have to use deadly force, mentally, I'm sure it's tough on the officer. That's something he has to recover from.
Has he ever had to use deadly force before?
I'm not sure he has. I believe this is his first shooting.
Was the suspect in this case under any influence that night?
I don't know that.
Would he have had to modify that pellet gun in any way to make it appear more like a regular firearm, or are they sold just exactly like that? Like not an orange tape or anything?
Based on his statement, and his statement being Garcia's statement, he purchased that firearm because it looked like a real firearm.
Any more questions?
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for your patience and for being here today.